Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Tire Talk Podcast Episode 1. My name is Abhinav, and this is a podcast where we discuss all things F1. So, today I have with me Arpit, who is my partner in this whole charade that we are starting, where we are going to talk about F1 and the world of motorsports in general. So, Arpit, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Arpit, and I will be partnering Abhinav in this podcast, and we will be bringing you content related to F1, be it news, be it race reviews, previews, and all the things.
Okay, so let's start. Should we start with the previous race then?
Yeah, definitely.
So, what were your thoughts about the previous race? What do you think about the Azerbaijan Grand Prix where Piastri won and Leclerc came second, and we has had some intense moments in the last laps of the race? What do you think about? What's your opinion about the race?
I mean, the race was going pretty well, but then the incident came that cashed the whole highlight of the race, and that was the Sainz and Perez clash. Otherwise, the race was pretty good. I mean, Ferrari was getting good positions. McLaren was also in the position to win the race and be in the lead for constructor. But again, the race there was crash happened and whole dynamics changed. And now, if you see the standings, it is pretty much open for every driver to win the championship, I guess.
Yeah, that was a pretty amazing race. I mean, it was all around the grid. I mean, it was an amazing race where we saw Verstappen really struggling, we saw Russell struggling, we saw everyone else struggling, and somehow managed to recover positions at the end. Like Norris, like starting from way back, finished fourth somehow thanks to the Perez and Sainz incident. I think he did a phenomenal job helping McLaren top the leaderboard now. I think Piastri with that overtake on Leclerc, that was just mind blowing, absolutely timed to perfection, and he just flew his car into the exit of that corner and just got ahead of Leclerc and stayed ahead of Leclerc for the entire race. I mean, clearly we all agree. I think Ferrari was the fastest car in the race, with Sainz and Leclerc constantly fighting for the top spot. But I mean, Piastri out of nowhere just came like closer to Leclerc after the pit stop and just won the race. What do you think about Leclerc's performance? Do you think Leclerc should have been a little more aggressive, or do you think he did what he could and just couldn't manage to really cash on to the start he got?
Yeah, I think Leclerc. I think he went for the tire saving strategy. I mean,
Yeah.
he just went on a constant pace for a lot more of the race, but he could have gone more aggressive, and the result could have been different. But what uh, caught me on the race was the performance from young drivers. Basically, the young drivers like the Cola Pinto and Beerman, they were all phenomenal, and they done a pretty good job, I guess, getting points in the first race.
Yeah. I mean, that's so funny that Colapinto has got more points than Logan Sargent in one race that he got his entire career. So he scored like 4 points, and that was like amazing result for Williams. I think Williams would be fighting next year for the top four position for sure. I think they might just have a surprise or two because their lineup with Sainz and Albon is just phenomenal. I think both are potential like top three, top five contenders where you never know if the race, if there's a safety car or some incident that happens, they might just end up in top five. So that they are just brilliant drivers. Anyway, so moving on, I think what do you think about Verstappen's performance? I think he struggled all throughout the race. He ended up coming behind a few of the cars, and he just couldn't. He came behind. I think he came behind Norris and just couldn't go past Norris and just struggled throughout the race. What's your opinion about him?
Yeah, even in the qualifying, Verstappen was not been able to get a good pace from the car. I think the upgrades that Red Bull has got now are not supporting Verstappen's style,
Hmm.
probably. So
Yeah.
they might be thinking of making it even better and aligning with Verstappen. But yeah, like Red Bull could have got a better result if Perez finished the race. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, the
Yeah, I
crash
think
happened
Checo,
and they
yeah,
lost
I
that
think
thing.
Checo was pretty unlucky because he drove a phenomenal race. I think he was like right behind Piastri and Leclerc throughout the race, but in the end, I think just Leclerc's tires just went off, and eventually Perez, Sainz closed on Perez, and that incident happened. I think it's very unlucky for Perez that Leclerc lost his tires. If Leclerc would have overtaken Piastri, I think Perez would have finished third easily. I mean, there was no competition between Sainz and I mean Perez, Piastri, and Leclerc, and the rest of the drivers. I think they were way ahead of the competition, but eventually the tires, since they were fighting every lap of the race, the tires just went off, and the field basically started closing up. So I think that was the highlight of. And I think also one more interesting point I saw is that Aston Martins have been struggling throughout the season. I mean, since the last almost 10 races, Aston Martin has not done anything. And with the signing of Adrian Newey, I'm expecting that things are going to move in the right direction coming next season. I think this season, I don't think so much things will change, but for sure, next season, we'll see some major improvements.
And another thing which I noticed pretty much about Checo is that he looked good after a lot of races. Like in the last previous races, he was not doing well, but in this race, from beginning till the end, he was right there for contending for the podium, I guess.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's pretty much about the Baku race. Next up is the Singapore,
Yeah, yeah, that's
and
a very interesting circuit. And I remember last season we saw Sainz masterclass, absolutely brilliant masterclass. And Russell, funnily enough, crashing on the penultimate lap right when he was about to overtake Norris. And Norris, I think, did a phenomenal job. I think Sainz won the race only because of Norris shielding him and keeping Russell and Hamilton behind. I think that was also, again, a phenomenal race. Again, I feel bad for Leclerc because he was just hung out to dry because the Ferrari's pit stop strategy was just horrible, where Leclerc had to slow down. They were trying to double stack, and Leclerc had to slow down, and eventually they just couldn't get ahead of the rest of the pack. I mean, rest of the top four, top five drivers, and he eventually finished fourth because of the Russell incident. But otherwise, he would have been finished. He would have finished outside of top five. Anyway, so yesterday we saw, like, I mean, not yesterday exactly, but today we saw in the morning the practice, right? And we saw in both practices we saw Ferrari being like the top car. I mean, the fastest car on track was undoubtedly Ferrari. McLaren was not far behind, but I think Piastri struggled. So I don't really know whether it was Norris's skill which kept him close to Leclerc or whether it was the car that is still closer to Ferrari. So I think it is going to be an interesting race. I think Red Bull is nowhere in the picture. Possibly they might make some changes to the car and they might start closing up, but I don't see that happening right now. And let's, I mean, I mean, practice three and probably the qualifying would be a better indicator of what the race is going to be like. What do you think, Arpit?
yeah, I mean, as you mentioned last year, probably the highlight for me was the radio message that Sainz got that point 0.8 behind Norris, and he said, yes, it's on purpose. So that was highlight for me.
Yeah,
And yeah, as you said, practice, the Ferrari was the fastest. And even Mercedes struggled a bit. And probably like the street circuit, it suits to Ferrari as well,
yeah,
and that's the reason Ferrari was the fastest. But again, it's depend upon the how drivers perform in the qualifying, and
yeah,
how the strategies for Ferrari goes, because
yeah.
it's always the problem with strategies, not with the drivers, I guess.
Yeah, I think for our viewers, I would like to explain that basically on street circuits, we have slower corners. So, I mean, Ferrari usually does well in slower corners, whereas McLaren, Mercedes, and Red Bull even have been known to be extremely fast in fast corners and straight lines, right? So, Ferrari usually struggles with their long straight. I mean, doesn't struggle exactly, but usually they're behind Red Bull when it comes to longer straights. Like you saw in Baku, Ferrari was pretty fast, but unfortunately, in the straight lines, I think Piastri was able to overtake Leclerc, whereas Leclerc was not able to overtake Piastri. So that we can clearly see the time, I mean, the performance difference there. Yeah. Anything else you are looking forward to, Arpit, in the race? Like, what do you think about other people's chances? Like, what do you think about Verstappen, Checo? What do you think about the Williams drivers? Because they have been doing pretty well in the last few races. So, what do you think about and who is going to be the like? What do you think the third, fourth, and the fifth fastest car is going to be?
I think so. From where I am seeing the race going, I think Red Bull is gonna struggle. As you said, they are not good at street circuits, but they will probably try to be in the top five. That's what I am
Yeah.
expecting. Other than that, Mercedes, like they did in the last time in 2023, they went with the all-out strategy in the last fewer laps,
Mhm.
and probably they could have gone third, fourth if Russell didn't crashed out. But apart from that, I believe third, fourth, fifth will be McLaren. So the Ferrari will be the fastest, and then
Yeah.
we will get McLaren and
So
probably
you
Red Bull.
okay, okay. So you see Leclerc winning the race or Sainz winning the race? What do you think? Which one of them is
I
going to
mean,
win the race?
I mean, if everything goes well, I'm hoping Leclerc win because
Okay.
he's more of a confident driver on street circuits,
Yeah, yeah,
especially if you see Monaco. He's been really good,
yeah.
and and I'm also eager to see the young ones how they gonna adopt to this
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
new
think it would
challenge.
be just phenomenal if Bearman, Colapinto, and all these drivers finish. I mean, I think Bearman is not going to race probably because my Magnussen might be back, but I don't know. I mean, I need to check whether Magnussen is back or not. But I think Colapinto, if he finishes again in the top 10, that would be just phenomenal. I mean, he should surely be in the race for, I mean, a seat on the grid with, with let's say a Sauber team or the any of the new teams that come up in 26 or 27. That's for sure. But I think watch out for signs. I would like to say to the viewers that watch out for signs because signs usually has something in him on these circuits. He's tactically brilliant. I mean, he whenever he gets ahead of the drivers, he usually stays there. He doesn't give a chance. If after first pit stop, if he's still ahead or he's in the top two, I think you never know. I mean, signs might just surprise a few people, right? So even I'm looking forward to how Norris and Piastri do in general because I think they have been the fastest drivers on the grid by far in the entire year. I mean, there is no one close to even not even Verstappen has been close to Piastri and Norris in this year. And I think I hope I hope Ferrari win. As a Ferrari fan, as you can see, I'm wearing a red T-shirt. I'm hoping that Ferrari win, but you never know. I mean, Norris and Piastri have just been brilliant. I think Norris makes always ends up making silly mistakes, and I think again he has a mistake in him, which probably we might just even if and the interesting part is I hope Norris finishes on pole because whenever Norris finishes on pole, he ends up losing the lead in the first lap itself. So I think that would be interesting. I want Leclerc not to start on pole because he doesn't win races from pole again. Same problem as Norris. So I want Norris to start on pole, Leclerc to first start second, Sainz to start third, so that they can just switch their positions immediately in the first few laps. And I think once Ferrari gets ahead, I don't think so that anyone is going to catch up to them. I think they are going to, and Leclerc is going to learn from his mistakes in the last race where he did a very bad in lap and an out lap, and Piastri just closed up to him and overtook him. So I think that is going to change in this race for sure. So anything else that you want to highlight, Arpit, before we close the podcast? We close this episode.
I mean, we have covered pretty much everything. Just we can maybe we can go with our predictions of top three. So what
Yeah,
top three you are predicting for tomorrow?
yeah. So I think it's going to be Leclerc, Norris, and Sainz.
Okay, so you are saying Leclerc winning the race, Sainz and Norris.
Not no Norris and Sainz. Norris finishing second and Sainz finishing third.
Okay,
Piastri
so
finishing fourth.
I probably go the other way. I'll say Leclerc finishing first, Sainz coming second, and I'm
Oh,
saying PS3 coming third because, as you said,
yeah,
Norris he
yeah, yeah,
sometimes do he overdo in the street circuits.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'm saying PS3 third.
I
Like
hope that happens because that if that happens, then Ferrari would be again back in the constructors' championship. I think Ferrari might just close up on Red Bull or even who knows. I think let me check what is the gap right now. I think it is somewhere around 30 points. I believe. Let me just check what is the gap in the standings. Okay, so I think McLaren is on 476, Red Bull is on 456, and Ferrari 425. So basically, it's still a long way away, but I think they can definitely leapfrog Red Bull if they come 1-2. So I think it's a very good chance for Ferrari to close down on McLaren.
I think it will open up the remaining season as well,
Yeah.
and it will make it more interesting. So
Yeah, yeah. And interestingly, the all the races that favor Ferrari are coming up. Like for example, Las Vegas one, the one in Abu Dhabi, the one in I think there's a Qatar GP. I think Qatar will favor McLaren because traditionally it's been a fast circuit.
yeah,
So, but I think all the other tracks I think will favor Ferrari. I believe. I may be wrong, but who knows? I mean, I think they have been. I mean, the recent upgrades have done a phenomenal job. So I think I'm looking forward to it.
Even the United States circuit will also be more of towards.
Yeah, I think that's the one I was talking about. Oh, you're talking about the quota. I think the Texas one.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Yeah,
the Texas one.
Texas one has traditionally favored Red Bull, but this time Red Bull is nowhere in the picture. So I think
Yeah.
you're right. I think Ferrari and McLaren, Ferrari one, McLaren two would be the order, I believe. Okay, then thank you so much, everyone, for sticking around. Have a good day. We will see you in the next episode. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.